These Cincinnati Reds pitchers, they sure look like they're ready for some October baseball.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily source for all things Cincinnati Reds baseball. I'm Stephen Offenbaker. He's Jeff Carr. We love baseball. We love these Cincinnati Reds. We love 4-game winning streaks, and we have taken that love of baseball, that love of the Cincinnati Reds, and we have turned it into information for you. Locked On Reds is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And on today's podcast, we're going to talk about those Reds and that 4-game winning streak. We're going to talk about just how good this pitching staff has looked lately and if it is built to compete in October. We're also going to take a look at today's game, which has Andrew Abbott taking the hill against Kyle Gibson. There was some really encouraging news about TJ Friedl from David Bell yesterday that caught all of us by surprise a little bit. We're going to get into that. And we're also going to take a look at a few of the prospects that the Reds might be keeping an eye on as we get closer and closer to this summer's draft. Before we get started, I want to shout out the sponsor of today's episode. It's brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. All right, Jeff, let's talk about some pitching because this pitching, oh my goodness, this pitching has looked good. And particularly yesterday, your boy Fernando Cruz did a job.
Quite frankly, Steve, this pitching staff as a whole has been the biggest reason that this team looks like it could still have success. And Monday was why. I mean, Memorial Day on the mound for the Redlegs was absolutely phenomenal. You see Nick Lodolo come back. They kind of limited his workload, 81 pitches thrown, 5 1/3 innings. But I was okay with it. I was fine with how they managed this game. I'm fine with how David Bell, took him out, brought in Fernando Cruz, because Nick Lodolo in 5 1/3 gave up 5 hits, 3 strikeouts, 0 walks, and only gave up 1 run. In fact, Steve, and not to take away any gas that we have when we talk about the bullpen, but there were no walks in this game. And that is the second game in a row that the Reds have not allowed a walk. Not one pitcher who's touched the mound for them has.
That's how you win baseball games, Jeff. Nick Lodolo, interestingly enough, in his post game yesterday, said that he knew going into that start he was probably going to be a little short on pitches. Like he wasn't going to be able to go his normal 100 pitches just because he hasn't pitched in 15 days. Right. But 81 pitches, getting 5 1/3 and 81. That's pretty pitch efficient. I was happy with what we saw from Nick Lodolo, and the walks are definitely key. The free bases. Another thing absent was Nick Lodolo hitting batters. The back foot breaker didn't catch any back feet. So, no free passes, timely offensive production when the Reds needed it. This is how they win. And, as much as I enjoyed sweeping the Los Angeles Dodgers, that was fun. That was a good time. Beating the red hot St. Louis Cardinals, breaking their win streak. I'll take that any day of the week.
Take that every single day of the week. Shout out to our buddy JD over at Locked On Cardinals. How we looking? But yeah, this bullpen was phenomenal, Steve. They got 11 outs. Those 3 2/3 innings worth of pitching for the bullpen last night. Fernando Cruz, Sam Moll, and Lucas Sims got 11 outs. 9 of them were strikeouts. They're not only were they pitching, very little damage whatsoever. They were cruising. I mean, every single part of this Cardinals lineup had no answer for Fernando Cruz's splitter. I mean, he had 5 outs, and they were all 5 strikeouts. Perfect outs for him. He gave up no base runners whatsoever. Sam Moll looking good again, and Lucas Sims continues to turn things around. I know a lot of folks were really down on him early on in the season, but Steve, and I said this at the top of the show. I said this on our post-game recap video that I posted after the game. This pitching staff looks like an October pitching staff. And the biggest reason why is because this bullpen is so versatile. You got guys that can go multiple innings. You got guys that can go high leverage. You have plenty of left-handers to call on. You have a guy to get, a couple of guys that can get ground balls, a couple of guys that can get fly balls. There's so many different ways that the Reds can attack an opposing lineup with this bullpen.
I was so happy to see Fernando Cruz come back out that second inning and not walk anybody, not struggle with the first batter that he faced. 5 guys, 5 strikeouts. That is key. You bring up Lucas Sims. He's looked a whole lot better. Lucas Sims, his velocity's up a little bit. He's back where you would expect him to be. It looks like his command is where it needs to be. He just got off to a rough start, and I'm glad to see him dialing in. I think his last 15 outings, he's got a sub-2 ERA. So it done. Another thing that I find refreshing, I find to be encouraging for this team is we knew going into this game we weren't going to have Alexis Diaz. You read the tea leaves and know he pitched enough the last several days that he was not going to be available. And this bullpen rose to the challenge. As you talk about the versatility, right? These guys stepped right into the role, went in there and did the things in situations that they're not normally asked to be in. Lucas Sims hasn't been in a true save situation since last year. August was the last time he was in a 9th inning save situation. So to see him rise to the occasion, I love it. Sam LeCure, by the way, on the post-game broadcast, I don't know if you caught it, but started calling it cruise control for Fernando Cruz.
I like that.
So I think that might be the new nickname there for Fernando Cruz, because he was definitely cruising.
He is one of the best relief pitchers in baseball. And I know he had the one big blow up, and that's really the only reason that his ERA does not look pristine right now. But everything that he has done, literally every other number that describes his performances, shows that he is a dude that needs to be recognized. He could be playing his way into an all-star appearance. I mean, he has pitched that well to begin this season, but it just seems as though this group of people who we talked about being a lot of the issue of the team, really it just boiled down to the fact that Alexis Diaz wasn't right and that Fernando Cruz had a bad outing. Other than that, this bullpen has been really good so far this season, and I think that this is the kind of bullpen you can ride. And dare I say, and knock on wood, and I don't mean to jinx anything by saying this, but dare I say that the Reds may be like the only team in Major League Baseball at the trade deadline that doesn't need to trade for a relief pitcher, because boy, they seem pretty deep right now.
No, that's a great point. They may need to go out and get a right-handed power bat finally,
yes.
but you're right. The pitching staff seems to be just where it needs to be for a run. And you talk about this whole staff being built for October baseball, being built for the postseason. They're going to have a difficult decision on their hands. Should they be a playoff team? Because how do you build this rotation? Obviously, right. I think at this point it's Hunter Green game 1, but you could go any direction after that and have a strong argument for it. So I'm excited to get to watch these guys pitch the rest of the way. What's been lacking has been consistency from the bullpen. And then obviously the lineup is what the lineup is until they get people back healthy, which we're going to be talking about in a few minutes. But I think with the bullpen looking like it's on better footing now, this team starts to move in the direction we thought that they could. And being out of the crazy gauntlet that was that beginning of May schedule through now, this team it's primed to make up ground. And I think they can do it even before they start getting everybody back.
The biggest question about this team heading into the season was the pitching staff, more so with the starting rotation than the bullpen, but the starting rotation has proven it, at least to this point in the season, and I think that we can kind of buy it. We always say Memorial Day is your first checkpoint, right? Memorial Day is the first point where you start to know what you know about a team, and I know that the Reds can pitch, and I absolutely love it. But Steve, we got some really good news about TJ Friedl, and the Reds have a chance to win their second series in a row. You know that instant confidence boost you get from an outfit that makes you look good? That's what I get with Stitch Fix. Stitch Fix is this amazing service that really helps you upgrade your wardrobe. If you're like me and your wardrobe is your team, then Stitch Fix is for you. You can easily upgrade your wardrobe this year with a professional stylist that helps you find the new and fancy trends and things like that that work best for you. Because all I had to do, I work with Stitch Fix, and I give my stylist my size, my style preferences, and my budget preferences, and then they get to work. They send me a box of 5 different items, and I can keep what works for me, and I send back the rest. Style that makes you feel as good as you look can be found with Stitch Fix. Get started today at stitchfix.com/MLB and get $20 off your first fix. That's stitchfix.com/MLB for $20 off. stitchfix.com/MLB, must redeem within 7 days of sign up. You've got to check out Locked On Sports today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every single day to bring you the biggest stories in all sports. Locked On Sports today brings you the can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news from Locked On's local hosts like myself and Steve to our national shows that cover every single league. And it's streaming 24/7 on YouTube or on the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. And coming up on the next Locked On Reds podcast, we got to talk about what a series win against the Cardinals will mean for the Cincinnati Reds. Hopefully, we'll be talking about it in past tense and not, hopefully they get it on Wednesday or something like that, because they've got a shot. And we're going to talk about that just in a minute here to break down this matchup of Andrew Abbott and Kyle Gibson on the mound for the Reds and Cardinals here tonight. But I want to start first, before we jump into that, with this update, because it really took us by surprise, Steve, that David Bell gave us a timeline for TJ Friedl that made our assumption that it would be the middle of June. That made that sound really conservative to the point that we're going to see TJ Friedl a lot sooner than that.
Yeah, David Bell said yesterday that TJ Friedl can be back as early as the end of this week, or will be back early next week. I don't know how this is even humanly possible. I mean, you joked during prep that he got some of the Wolverine juice, and I think that has to be the case,
man.
Because he just needs to be able to take live batting practice and not have pain in that thumb. I don't even think he's going to end up on a rehab stint. I know they're kicking around the idea of maybe him going a game or two to Louisville, but I don't know why you would do that. He hasn't been out.
If it's this fast, that's true.
If it's this fast, then bring him back. I don't know how his thumb has healed as fast as it has, but he will be a welcome addition to the top of this Reds lineup. And it starts moving those pieces right there in the last segment. I talked about this team being primed schedule-wise and field of play-wise right now to make up the ground in this division, and getting TJ Friedl back this early just helps with that cause. It helps get things moving, all of that forward momentum as we get into the month of June. This team can get back into first place. They can get back into contention.
And this is one of those things too. Like we always joke that if David Bell gives you a prognosis, probably double it, whatever he's saying. But this is a little bit different because he has seen him do the work. He has talked to the trainers about this. This isn't like he just got hurt and this is what I'm hearing, so yeah, he'll be back in 20 minutes. Like, he knows based on what he's seen from TJ Friedl that this is what we can expect from him. And quite frankly, the return that he had from the broken wrist was so fast, and he looked fine. It wasn't as if it was too fast or it was too early or something like that. Like, he looked fine out there on the field. I love this, and this would be so big. I mean, Jacob Hurtubise has very admirably filled in for TJ Friedl at the top of the lineup, but he's no TJ Friedl, and we really need to get him back in the top.
So let's revisit that for just a second before we move into today's game against the Cardinals. When you bring TJ Friedl back at the end of the week, what's your corresponding roster with?
So I do send down Nick Martini, but I mean, Jacob Hurtubise no longer has to be that obvious, against right-handed pitching leadoff guy. That's now going to be TJ Friedl. In fact, you can make the argument based on his short career that TJ Friedl should just be leadoff, period, because he can hit lefties pretty well too. But I would send down Nick Martini.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's where I would go to. First move, first man out, Nick Martini. I totally agree with that. All right, Jeff. Hopefully the Reds are going to nail down their second series win in a row today against the St. Louis Cardinals. We've got Andrew Abbott on the mound, back-to-back left-handers in Nick Lodolo and now Andrew Abbott. Kyle Gibson's going for the St. Louis Cardinals. He got smacked around a little bit his last time out, and he was also the victim of some poor defensive play behind him. The Cardinals have been making a lot of errors, and they can keep that up and make me happy all day long. Last time out for Gibson, he only managed to go 4 innings, Jeff. He allowed 5 hits, 3 runs scored on those 5 hits, but none of them were earned. Struck out 3 guys, walked none. So I think the key to success for the Reds here right now is obviously continue to hit home runs, but put the ball in play. Force these aged St. Louis Cardinals defenders to field the ball. It was nice for the Reds to get the win yesterday on Senior Day out at Great American Ballpark with the St. Louis Cardinals in town. It is not lost on me that the Reds made the very first visit of the St. Louis Cardinals to Great American Ballpark this year, Senior Day. I love it. I think this is a very winnable game for the Reds. Andrew Abbott has been lights out, and it continues to be lights out.
I think today and tomorrow will also be Senior Day for the Reds, just as long as the Cardinals are in town.
Right.
But Kyle Gibson, his MO is he fills up the strike zone, period, plain and simple. He doesn't really fill up the strike zone with a lot of stuff. It's pretty simple stuff, and that is why he gets hit around so often. But there are those cases where he gives up a lot of weak contact, and the defense is actually helping him out, so he's able to shut down opposing lineups. But I think that this is a day we will see the lineup hit. The big thing will be, because we can think back to the Padres series where in the finale they had 8 hits and they just didn't get people over and in. That's going to be the big thing. And honestly, as much it was awesome that the Reds won the series opening game, it masked the fact that they were 1 for 7 with runners in scoring position, and they stranded quite a few guys. So it's going to be kind of imperative that they get timely hits and that they make good decisions and base running and stuff like that, because there's going to be guys on base today against Kyle Gibson. And hopefully, in 2 seconds here on this, but don't want to waste too much time on it, but hopefully this will bring back the Ellie parlay, because the Ellie parlay has really been hurting here recently. I mean, Ellie's not been hitting a lot. He's been walking, but he ain't been hitting. So hopefully
he's due
he can get some hits.
He's due for a breakout day. For me, I'm interested to see how Andrew Abbott looks in this start, Jeff. His last time out, he went 7 innings, right? It was a good start. 4 hits, 7 innings, 0 earned runs, but it was a little bit off brand in that he only struck out 2 guys. He walked 1. He pitched to a lot of contact. There weren't any barrels against him. The defense did their thing, and he cruised. I'd be interested to see how he attacks this St. Louis Cardinals lineup, because there are a couple guys, I make fun of them for all being kind of, past their primes in their careers or whatnot, but there's still some danger in this lineup. We saw Goldschmidt go yard yesterday. He's still dangerous. You can't sleep with Nolan Arenado in the lineup. You have to treat him as a threat each and every time he's in the box. So I'm going to be really interested in watching how Andrew Abbott goes about attacking these Cardinals hitters.
Yeah, that's going to be an intriguing thing, because now Goldschmidt has hit homers in back-to-back games. He had 2 homers on the Sunday game against the Cubs. He's kind of heating up quite a bit here recently. And that's really the big thing, is how do you deal with those 2 guys? Because if you deal with those 2 guys, it makes it a little bit easier to pitch with this lineup. Look, Mason Wynn has looked pretty solid here this year, and that's why he's been leading off for them. But they've kind of been shuffling some guys around, just trying to figure out who they have and who's going to stick and what's going to happen here. This is why we said at the beginning of the year, all these people that were picking the Cardinals to win the division, why? This lineup's not deep. This pitching staff's not deep. This bullpen's not deep. Like, I know that they came in hot, and I know that they came in ready to play, and there's always the Cardinals devil magic that you've got to worry about. But outside of that, I don't know what the reason is that the Reds should be worried about this team. I think that this is your game to win, and then you can play with house money on Wednesday where you could build yourself a 6-game winning streak before you hit the road.
Yeah, I like their chances in this game coming up. And I say this all the time when they're facing a right-handed pitcher, because the Reds' best version of themselves right now is when they are facing a right-handed pitcher, because they can get all of those lefties in the lineup. They can do all of the things that they need to do as far as juggling positions around in DH. I like their chances at scoring a lot of runs early. I think they can get to Gibson early with the lineup that they're going to be able to start the game with. If they can chase him in 4 innings, that's going to be a good day down at Great American Ballpark. That means they'll have scored a bunch of runs.
Yeah. And the fact that, Lance Lynn didn't go crazy deep into the game last night and felt like, or yesterday afternoon, and it felt like that the Cardinals really did dip into their bullpen quite a bit to begin this series after a game in which, Sonny Gray only pitched 6 innings on Sunday too. So this Cardinals bullpen's been a little bit busy here. Let's see if we can keep him busy on tonight.
Well, and there is a chance that on the getaway game, they're going to go with a bullpen day. They have yet to name a starter. They have yet to name a starter for the Tuesday finale.
Ooh, so could this be a Kyle Gibson pitch come hell or high water where you're just in there, man? And if you're giving up hits,
they have yet to name. They have yet to name a starter. They've been kind of going with a 4-man rotation and patchworking it here lately. I'm going to be interested to see how they approach this, because you're right. If they already know that Wednesday is a bullpen day, they may just tell Kyle, hey, go throw 100 pitches. I don't care what the scoreboard looks like.
I kind of like that. So I can't wait to see how the Reds attack this game, but I feel good about their chances.
Absolutely. All right, Jeff, we're getting towards summer now. We're almost into June, and it's time to check in on the prospects that the Reds might be looking at for the upcoming July draft. We're going to get into that coming up next. You can take the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets with Game Time. Just download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Talk about Game Time a lot because this is something that I use a lot. I use this when I'm getting Reds tickets. I've used it for Bengals tickets. You can use it for concert tickets. The possibilities are endless. Game Time has all-in pricing. So when you jump on the app, you find the seat you want, you know exactly what you're going to pay for it. I use this at Great American Ballpark all the time. Go have some pregame food and beverage, and right before it's time to go to the game, jump on the app, grab up a ticket, head over to the stadium. It's just that easy. All you got to do is download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB. You're going to get $20 off your first purchase. That's $20 off already incredibly low prices. Now, terms do apply. So head over and make your new account. Redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB, $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. You can catch every pitch of the Reds' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search the word Reds. Also, if you haven't done so yet, head over to CincinnatiRedsTalk.com and check out the writing that Jeff's doing. I'm doing some writing there. James Rapine, Audie Elmore, the extensive list of folks that talk about the Reds are now writing about the Reds. So make sure you check that out. All right, Jeff, we're getting into summer now, and while the MLB draft is not as popular as the NFL draft, this is important to pay attention to because this year, the top 2 picks in the draft are Ohio picks. The Cleveland Guardians are going number 1, and the Reds are picking number 2.
And there are a lot of options here for the Reds that are college hitters that may not need a ton of time in the minor leagues. So like we could be talking about a guy, don't think I'm talking about a guy that's going to go straight to the bigs, but I mean, maybe he spends a year in the minors and then we see him up. So the Reds are going to be able to load the next wave with this draft pick. And there's a couple of guys to look out for. And one of the reasons that I wanted to do this, and I was telling you this when we were prepping for the show today, is that coming up this Friday, the NCAA baseball tournament begins. They've got the regionals and stuff like that that begin on Friday, and there are plenty of opportunities now because they're tournament games to watch these players. And I'm really just looking at 3 today. There's 2 hitters and there's 1 pitcher. There is a pitcher who could come into play for the Reds at number 2, because really the Guardians are looking at these top 2 hitters. The Cleveland Guardians are probably, I'd say, based on the different stuff that I've read, and I get a lot of my information when it comes to the draft from baseballamerica.com, but based on what I'm reading, the Guardians are going to choose between Charlie Condon from Georgia and Travis Bazzana from Oregon State. Both these guys are fantastic hitters, so whichever one they don't pick, it's going to be there for the Reds. And there's a lot of good stuff to like about these guys.
Oh, absolutely. I really like this Condon kid, Jeff. You know, he plays some third base, he plays some outfield, and he plays in the SEC. And you hear SEC, and I know you instantly think about football, but that translates into all sports. The SEC is a testing
Especially
ground, a battleground, a proving ground. It's basically not much far from minor league baseball as far as talent goes in the SEC.
I've heard some scouts say that it's very close to like low A. So like consider almost an SEC school as like Daytona or something like the Tortugas for the Reds.
So Condon hit 35 home runs in this past season. He's 6'6", and he is able to just bat. You want to hear an impressive slash line, Jeffrey? 443, 558, 1.043. That's something.
So he's getting on base more times than he isn't.
Pretty much. That is the case.
That's how my math, 55% of the time means 45% of the time he's not. Yeah. Actually, it's really like 44% of the time. But yeah.
Clearly you didn't go to school in the SEC.
Clearly not. Although it was SEC adjacent, but yeah. But he's a guy and scouts use the term, plus or plus or something like that. He has plus raw power. And he's also really shown them the ability to hit well. Like he has a great demeanor at the plate, great plate discipline and things like that. Like you can see him play. It's going to be a lot of fun. You can see him play. So all of this begins on Friday, May 31st, this coming Friday. You can see him play at 1 p.m. as Georgia gets going. I think they play Army. So shout out to Jacob Hurtubise on that one. But 1 p.m. Eastern time on ESPN+. Then the other guy, Travis Bazzana, he's got a very interesting thing because you can talk about slash lines, you can talk about counting stats, all this other stuff. 71 walks, 32 strikeouts. I mean, we're talking about like MLB The Show type numbers there for him. Now, Oregon State, a little bit different. Pac-12, not necessarily the same level of competition as the SEC, but still fantastic year for him. He was a guy too, by the way, Steve. Yeah, I did an early on in spring training interview with Lindsey Crosby, who used to be our host for Locked On MLB Prospects, really knows college baseball really well. And Travis Bazzana was a name he gave me. Now, there were 2 other names that he gave me that this season have kind of fallen off a little bit. That's why you're not hearing us talk about Nick Kurtz or JJ Weatherholt, but Travis Bazzana was on that list.
Well, Bazzana has shown one thing, whether you're talking about the Pac-12 or the SEC, the strike zone is the strike zone. And Travis clearly has a feel for the strike zone when you look at the walks to strikeout ratio. So I think that it's going to be interesting to see what Cleveland does, because if I had the number 1 pick, I think I'm going Condon over Bazzana, but I'm not sure. But I think just in that, what they've been playing against at competition level, I think that gives Charlie Condon the edge. I would be shocked if Cleveland doesn't take him as the number 1 overall pick.
And just to kind of clarify as well, I didn't mention this, but Charlie Condon is listed as a third baseman / outfielder, and Travis Bazzana is listed as a second baseman. It's not necessarily a thing to pick based on position, because most of these guys are going to fit into a position that the organization that picks them wants them to play anyway. But it's just showing, he's got the kind of athleticism to at least play on the middle infield. The one dark horse, and I say dark horse because I firmly believe the Reds are picking a bat with this, because there are 2 guys, those 2 guys are like otherworldly good with the bat. but there is a really good pitcher, and that is Hagen Smith, a left-handed pitcher from Arkansas. He's been the best. According to Baseball America, he has been the best pitcher in the country this year, and he's got a 1-2 combination when it comes to fastball slider that he really features, and he's really able to just mow down hitters with.
Do you know, with him, 79 innings pitched, Jeff, and in those 79 innings, he struck out 154 batters and walked 30. That 154 strikeouts in 79 innings. This guy is bringing it. I mean, absolutely.
And again, back in the SEC, he goes to Arkansas.
Right. This is some tremendous pitching talent. But I think I agree with you. I think at this juncture, I think the Reds are going bat. It's going to be one of those first two guys we talked about. I'm fairly certain, but this guy's going to go early. Smith's going to go early in the draft, but I don't see the Reds going with pitching.
And this could be, and I always preach this, and I've always been told this when it comes to the MLB draft, that teams pick best available. There's really no such thing as a needs-based pick in the MLB draft, but if you're picking number 2 overall, you can kind of play that a little bit and be like, okay, well, this dude is supposed to be up quick, so he really could help us like next year or something, which it's still a little bit silly to say, well, we're picking based on need for like a year or two down the road. But that's really what the MLB draft is, especially if you're talking about a guy in high school or something like that, where you're like, okay, we're really drafting for need 5-6 years down the road. And then at that point, you really are talking about best player available. But all of these players that the Reds have a chance to pick, college players who could move through the system quickly and could be a part of this major league organization. I don't necessarily want to put a date on it, but you really could be talking about them in 2026.
Yeah, some really intriguing options, Jeff. Some really talented players. I'm going to be interested to see how this plays out when we do get to draft day. And that is probably where we should go ahead and wrap it up for today. That's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Reds. Thanks as always for making us your first listen every day. Everydayers, check in tomorrow where we're going to be talking about winning 2 series in a row. I'm calling it right now. The Reds are winning today. We're going to be talking about a second series win in a row, having beat the Cardinals. Until then, Jeff, what can folks expect from you and I the rest of the season?
They can expect us to continue to be positive about their favorite baseball team. They can continue to expect us to be watching every single game and analyzing every single game, because we are Locked On Reds every single day.
SEC adjacent.
Like that, huh? That was a good one. I like that one.